So friends, a Republican billionaire mega donor who has been lavishing extravagant, expensive gifts and benefits on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas just told a Senate committee, no, I won't be providing you information about any of that, about what is essentially his Supreme Court influence operation. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, recent reporting by ProPublica revealed that Republican billionaire mega donor Harlan Crow has, for a very long time, been lavishing millions of dollars worth of luxury trips and accommodations on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Crow also reportedly purchased Thomas's mother's home, dumped all kinds of money into it to make improvements, and then, of course, let Thomas's mother live there rent-free. Crow reportedly paid the private school tuition of Clarence Thomas's, I believe, grandnephew, who he raises as a son, etc., etc., etc. So not surprisingly, Senate committees have requested information, an accounting from Crow about how much money he has dumped into Clarence Thomas and his family members in what is a pretty transparent influence peddling operation. Are you ready for Harlan Crow's reply? Headline from NBC News: Harlan Crow declines to provide Senate Finance Committee with list of gifts he has given to Justice Clarence Thomas. Because of course he declined. The article begins, Republican donor Harlan Crow wrote in a letter to the Senate Finance Committee that he will not provide a list of gifts he gave to Justice Clarence Thomas, who has faced recent calls to step down, to resign, to leave the Supreme Court because you have disgraced this nation. Those are my editorial additions. The article continues. Crow conveyed that decision to Committee Chairman Senator Ron Wyden, which a representative for Crow provided to NBC News. Wyden's spokesperson Ryan Carey also confirmed to NBC that the committee had received Crow's letter. And friends, here's what Crow said. Quote, we have serious concerns about the scope of and authority for this inquiry. As you are aware, the committee's powers to investigate are not unlimited, the letter from Crow's lawyer, Michael Bopp, said. The Senate Finance Committee, Bopp argued, lacks a legislative purpose in its request for the list of gifts, saying that the Supreme Court has explicitly stated that Congress has no authority to engage in law enforcement investigations or to conduct investigations aimed at exposing citizens' private affairs for the sake of exposure. The committee also lacks the authority to conduct a tax audit, Bopp wrote, for the purpose of determining whether Justice Thomas complied with ethical standards the chairman believes should apply in this instance. In addition, Bopp said that the panel's inquiry targeting a Supreme Court justice raises substantial separation of powers concerns. The letter argues that the Crows, whom Bopp said have been friends with the Thomases for more than 20 years, have provided hospitality to the justice and his family. The IRS, Bopp wrote, has not been aggressive in arguing a gift tax law applies in that context. He also said that the sale of properties related to Thomas, which the judge didn't disclose, complied with federal and state gift tax laws. Wow, just Wow. So let's take Harlan Crow and his lawyer, Mr. Bop's, assertions one at a time. First of all, we have serious concerns about the scope of and authority for this inquiry. As you are aware, the committee's powers to investigate are not unlimited. I'm quite sure the committee is aware of its own powers and the limits thereof. The Senate Finance Committee lacks a legislative purpose in its request for the list of gifts. Well, let's see. Maybe Congress should legislate more robust and farther-reaching financial disclosure requirements on Supreme Court justices. And maybe they should legislate and increase the penalties for knowing, obvious, intentional, transparent violations of those financial disclosure requirements. Maybe those penalties should include significant periods of incarceration if you violate the law and you abuse the public trust and you denigrate the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, as Clarence Thomas has done. Frankly, this is a legislative purpose palooza. Let's take on Mr. Bop's next complaint. The committee also lacks the authority to conduct a tax audit for the purpose of determining whether Justice Thomas complied with ethical standards the chairman believes should apply in this instance. So what now? Harlan Crow and his attorney, Mr. Bop, are also representing the interests of Clarence Thomas. They're defending him. They're suggesting he did nothing wrong. Don't look at his tax returns. Whatever you do, don't check to see if Clarence Thomas fully and accurately and truthfully reported all of the income, all of the benefits, the in-kind donations, the tuition payments that he should have reported. No need to pull back that curtain. But Mr. Bop goes on. Bop said that the panel's inquiry targeting a Supreme Court justice raises substantial separation of powers concerns. Wow. So now Harlan Crow is raising the grievances of a co-equal branch of government, the judiciary, the judicial branch. Harlan Crow believes, I guess he gets to assert that Congress, the legislative branch, is overstepping its bounds. Separation of powers. You have no right to interfere in the judicial branch's business. Now, what is it that gives Harlan Crow standing to assert the rights and grievances of the judicial branch of government? I mean, maybe he does feel like a dues-paying member, right? With all of the money and benefits he's lavished on a Supreme Court justice. Maybe he feels like he's an honorary member of the Supreme Court, right? I mean, goodness knows he's paid enough to have influence there. But still, he doesn't get to assert a separation of powers concern. That's really not for him to decide when a Senate committee is seeking information. You know, that's generally something we leave up to the courts. Harlan. All right, let's just do one more. Bop says that Harlan Crow has been friends with the Thomases for more than 20 years. Harlan Crow has provided hospitality to the justice and his family. Friends, has anybody ever provided you hospitality that included buying your mother's home and letting her live there rent-free and putting your kids through private school? No, Harlan Crow wasn't trying to purchase influence from a Supreme Court justice. Perish the thought. They're just buddies. So what now? The answer is actually pretty simple. It's Government 101. It's Governing 101. Subpoena the information from Harlan Crow, then subpoena him to testify. Let him fight the subpoenas in court. He will lose. And then part 2 of the simple answer governing 101, the Department of Justice should open an investigation in what seem to be pretty obvious violations of public financial disclosure laws by Clarence Thomas. You know, the integrity and legitimacy of the United States Supreme Court is too important not to investigate Thomas's obvious transgressions. And because justice matters. Gloves off, friends. Gloves off. As always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.